we were there for that moment just before it blew up, basically. And that's where the legacy that we were carrying on was clear, because we could headline shows all over the country based on the fact that we were on Discord and we were from DC. It had nothing to do with who we were or even what our music was about.
The fact that we were on Discord and a part of this, you know, the DC scene, opened up pretty much every door we could have wanted as teenagers in a band in the 80s. The worst thing about being a part of the DC scene was there was something very compartmental about it. Certain things were cool, stamp, and certain things were not. And it was not the fault of the people who were stamped cool. They were, for the most part, all artists and wonderful people. It, again, was the cultural perception that this is acceptable, alternative, underground culture. This, we don't know what that is. So, sod off.
We were getting shows around, I mean, we got, you know, in other cities just because, oh, you know, you're on Discord, or, oh, you know, I mean, Fugazi cast a mighty weight.
A lot of diversity going on. Dag Nasty, even, you know, record to record, there was diversity. They were transitioning so quickly. Everybody was kind of fleeing this, you know, this core sound, the hardcore sound, or whatever. But you know, that original sound. Swizz really wanted to get back to that, and we were surprised when that old guard really wasn't interested, and offended and pissed, which fueled us more to play more music like that. I don't know that we really fit into that scene very much.
The sort of transformative moment was when Fire Party started, because, you know, there were some people in that band that were dating boys in other bands. And, you know, when those other boys in those bands sang, you know, broken-hearted love songs or critical love songs, you had a pretty good idea who they might be singing about. And it was a pretty one-sided conversation. So it was exciting to me to be able to have, to see, you know, Amy and the other women in Fire Party be up there and have their own voice.
There was this idea, I think, amongst a lot of people that you shouldn't be overly feminine. I remember when I sang for Special K, I really struggled with the idea that it would be okay for me to wear dresses on stage.
I remember when I started going to shows in DC, it was eye-opening. There were more women at the shows, and I started seeing bands with women in them. And finally, for the first time, it dawned on me, you can do this too. And that's my sophomore year in college. I got my first bass guitar, and after I graduated, we formed Jawbox.
This constant kind of we don't want to talk. We are women. We're playing music, but we don't want to talk about it. You know, we just wanted to be looked at as musicians. So it was a really kind of interesting phenomena when the Riot Grrrl thing started, because it was like they were turning that on its head. You know, we had spent all this time trying to play in a way that we would just be respected for who we were playing, and suddenly these girls were coming along and saying, no, like, this is the forefront of our identity, and this is what we're gonna put in your face. And you know, it took me years to kind of like deal with it and grapple with it.
The reason why I got into Nirvana was because they liked Scream. And so they came to see Scream play. And they saw me play and they're like, man, if we could get a drummer like that, we'd be set.
But right around 88, 89, that's when a lot of the bands that would become popular in the 90s really, you know, started coming up. The Nation of Ulysses, Jawbox, obviously Fugazi.
I feel like it was a foregone conclusion that Fugazi was going to be a big band, though. I think that everybody was waiting to, like, people like, no matter what Ian was going to do, you know, people were like, they wanted to know about it. And then, you know, the fact is, they were a really good band.
As well as sort of the lyrics and the band's, you know, kind of way of doing business and their ethic. Monster hooks, you know, big choruses. And at their essence, a lot of people would disagree, but, you know, at their essence, Fugazi is this great, like, arena rock band.
Like Fugazi, people say, well, you can force people to do it your way. No, we can't. But we can say that we're not going to do it their way.
Accept it or don't accept it. That's okay. You know, the whole punk ethic has always been, you know where the fucking door is, so you can go. And you know, that's the whole point. We don't charge like incredible amounts of money. We don't promise them nothing. We just say Fugazi.
What we did was we tried to keep a low door price. In this country, we made $5, but it was just funny to us.
The first time I saw Nirvana play was when I flew up there to audition to be their drummer. And I get there, and there's like 1,000 people at the show. And I was blown away that there were that many people there to see a local band, because I thought the only place that happened was in Washington, D.C. with Fugazi.
You know, for a lot of people, the story begins when, you know, Dave hits those drums and all of a sudden Kurt Cobain is strumming those chords and yeah, all of a sudden, oh yeah, punk's alive again. Nirvana only existed because of all of this stuff that happened before. And whatever Dave brought into there, and I do think Dave brought some magic into that band to help make that extraordinary moment happen for them. A lot of it's straight out of Revolution Summer.
The real issue with Nirvana and there's this explosion It had to do with the video and the imagery that was being used, which was largely people crowd surfing, jumping off a stage. And at that point, it just became insane. Every show, no matter what you're playing, or if you're playing at all, people had to jump up on people's heads. So many necks were injured or broken. I know that because it's one of the reasons that we just would not, we had it happen at our show. We had, somebody leave on a backboard, never to walk again. This sort of fanciful, like, dude won't let us slam. We can't do our thing. It's like, fuck you.
I don't think anybody thought they were going to get big. I don't think that was a thing in our music scene. The whole 80s, nobody that I knew thought too seriously about making it big in our music scene. If you were going to try to make a serious living as a musician, you would have to switch to a different music scene.
DC was always just like shunning the mainstream and shunning corporate culture, and it was a little embarrassing if you ended up signing.
Major labels were just freaking out, trying to make money off of an uncontrollable, undefinable, underground that captured people's imagination. So they would throw money at a band that didn't want to be rock stars and could not conceivably be rock stars because of their music and their looks and their personalities and their ambitions. We sold in the area of like 20,000 records on Discord, which is pretty respectable. So we never got really reliable numbers from Atlantic, but maybe we sold around 60,000 of our Atlantic records. So that's tripling our numbers. That's an incredible success for us. But for Atlantic, it's an abject failure.